Finally, my friends, I think and hope this is the moment you have been waiting for. Let us go very tactical and actionable. Let us talk about setting your OKRs. Alright, let's get into it by starting with how do we cascade our company goals? Well, let's first start with the two styles. And this is more of an art, really, than science, so we can systematically identify which approach to use each time. And it will be either top down or bottom up. Does the manager impose to everyone in the team? How much autonomy does each individual have in proposing going up? We'll dive into it as we go along. Now, these are the four steps that are involved, whether it's top down or bottom up. The employees will set their own OKRs, which will be discussed with their managers, and departments collectively negotiate their own, which would be ultimately presented to the company. So there will be a lot of top down and bottom up involved. Now, let's talk about setting your objectives. And again, we will see top down and bottom up as a recurring theme. And we'll talk about how to identify which approach to go with. Let's start with setting the O's, the objectives. Step one is to brainstorm, and then we rank it by impact. Then we test our best ideas, and then we'll define the statements of our objectives. Let's start with the brainstorming. Now, this is where the top down and bottom up comes up again. It's a matter of choice wherein do we brainstorm with our peers? For example, if you are owning a department, that will be valuable because you can align with other teams how they go along with their goals. So, multiple teams inside the same company are in close communication as you set goals that will ultimately cascade to the same direction as it goes up to the company. This is, by the way, heavily inspired by 4DX, the Four Disciplines of Execution by Franklin Covey. So, again, as we brainstorm, we choose if it is done with our peers, say for example with other departments, or if we are a business owner, it is going to be done with our business partners, or we brainstorm with our team, with the employees, or a representative sample size of it. Or finally, we can initially brainstorm alone, and then we can just communicate with others as we go along. Second is after brainstorming our candidate objectives, we can rank them by impact so they are sorted in order. This is a powerful exercise as it will reveal what's more important than others. During this exercise as well, we can even figure out if our brainstorming session didn't take into account some potential good ideas. Next is we test our top ideas, and the considerations include do, do, does, do the goals align to the bigger picture? Second, does our team own the result? And this is specifically for companies with multiple departments or multiple teams because it's about, hey, are we building something that's not in conflict with the interests of other teams within the same organization? Number three, is the game, is the objective a game that involves the entire team Does is the entire team in charge of achieving that objective, or is this mostly a decision for the leader? We want we want the former. We want the entire team to feel involved. This is where the bottom up happens, right? Because we would want our teammates to feel ownership of what's going on, or else they're going to be detached and they're going to be in a state of simply pleasing the boss by showing that they're working hard, whether or not it's affecting your objectives. Lastly, this is a very easy litmus test again, our portable, reusable Swiss Army knife SMART criteria. Is the objective specific, measurable, attainable, relevant to the bigger picture, as we just mentioned, and does it have a deadline? Now, we define our objective statements, which will include starting with a verb. So it's going to be something like after the verb, there's going to be an X value to the Y value by the deadline. Again, this is very much inspired by Franklin Covey's Four Disciplines of Execution. So the way this is going to look is, for example, increase revenue from X dollars to Y dollars by 3 months. So we start with a verb because we're going to increase it, or we're going to reduce a number, or we're going to change something in other particular manner. But the point is, it has to be a verb because we're moving a needle. And the needle starts from X and should end to Y by a very specific deadline. That's the T in SMART, time bound. Let's move on to the key results, which is a similar story with brainstorming your objectives. We start by brainstorming it, and in this case, the top down, bottom up matter is quite a bit different because the key results should be brainstormed by people who are directly involved in achieving the objective. So the ones who are gonna identify how to achieve the objective that they're supposed to own are the very people who are gonna do the work from a day-to-day basis. And then, of course, ranked by impact, we sort it by priority, similar to what we did for objectives. And then we test our top ideas. How do we do that? Here's an important difference between objectives versus key results. Key results are built specifically to feed the objectives, so they should be predictive of success. The things that we brainstormed and ranked should be great predictors of achieving the objectives that we want to achieve. So if we want to increase revenue, our ideas for key results in increasing revenue should actually be connected, should be correlated. They should be reasonably, in a sense, you can say that if we achieve this key result, we do firmly believe that it will affect the objective. And another is, unlike the lag measure, the lead measure, which is the key result, is more influenceable. So increase revenue is harder to influence than, say, you're going to meet with more customer prospects. It's influenceable because it's a verb that can be done. And again, we use the SMART criteria of being specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. Now, we define our key results, which again would start with a verb and describe a finish line, which can be usually be a project. So this is less sensitive in terms of the X to Y by when statement, because in many cases, the X really doesn't matter. We just have to, for example, complete 5 phone calls. A usual assumption is you start from 0 phone calls, right? It's not like you're watching an a business outcome, like, for example, revenue. You want to increase revenue from its current status. Here it's usually a set of tasks that form a project. You complete these lead measures, and when you set them, the assumption is you usually start from zero. So make 5 phone calls, attend 3 conferences, do an A B test, or whatever it might be. So there you go. Very, very actionable. I hope you start today. Do identify your objectives and keep in mind the art of deciding on top down and bottom up. And I do hope that you do a lot of bottom up whenever you're working with teammates who should have and feel ownership and autonomy towards achieving your objectives. See you again soon.